Yeah, this is another story about dogs. For the dog that don't pee on trees is a bitch. So get to the booty. We do it doggy style.
Hello everyone, xForts here, and welcome to JoJolion Chapter 66 review, titled The Plant Appraiser, Part 3, and I thought it would just be a sin to not wear my Plant Appraiser cosplay in at least one of these JoJolion reviews. So I know I'm just wearing the shirt and the sweater, but the hat on the last day of Colossal Con got a little bit destroyed, as you can see, and also the right ear flap isn't staying up anymore, so I'm either going to need to make repairs to this one, or just make a whole new hat in general, and I'm just going to pretend that it's not 80 degrees in this room when I'm recording this, so that's another excuse not to wear the hat. So I guess we'll consider this one of the Plant Appraiser's alternate outfits, a more casual look without the hat and his hair out of braids. But anyways guys, let's get on to JoJolion Chapter 66, The Plant Appraiser Part 3, and the cover page is of course Mamazuku Rai showing off his stand, which has been confirmed, and its name is Doggy Style after the Snoop Dogg 1993 album. So yeah, Snoop Dogg is officially a JoJo reference, and this is actually one that didn't come out of nowhere, as in Araki's 2013 Switch interview in his music library, he was actually holding this album, so we were bound to have a Snoop Dogg reference in JoJo sooner or later, and I think Mamazuku Rai and his stand Doggy Style fit perfectly. Also on the cover page, we see Doggy Style activated, as its ability seems to be able to turn its user's body into sort of bandage wrap or gauze. And in the last chapter, 65, I sort of misinterpreted the stand's ability, as in the final page, he used his stand to grab a strawberry from off the ground and put it on top of the Romanoff. I interpreted that as the Romanoff being the ground and the strawberry being pulled up out of it. So that's just my bad on my end there, but the ability seems to be that it can just extend the user's reach. So although we do see him use Doggy Style later in this chapter, it's still really nothing impressive, and it is a very underpowered stand from what we've seen it do in the last two chapters. So now getting on to the chapter itself, and it starts off pretty much immediately where it left off last time, although we just saw Doggy Style activated, and Yasuo and Josuke were like, what is this stand? But then when we pick up this chapter, they're sort of not questioning his stand anymore, and just eating the Romanoff, and it looks pretty damn good. The beginning of this chapter is fairly slow. It's just more of them eating, hanging out in the dining room, and Mamazuku Rai explaining to them that he actually does live in this ski lift. I'm also getting a small hint of Tonio here from when Josuke and Yasuo are actually eating the Romanoff. Like, Yasuo is just yelling in joy because how good it is, and Josuke is actually crying because it's so good. So as Yasuo and Josuke are just shouting their excitement and enjoyment of the Romanoff, Mamazuku actually looks over, and he has like this remote control that sort of controls all of the ski lift panels. So every single section of the ski lift is a different room, and he points over to, I believe it is the 6th pole, and a toilet falls down, so that's the bathroom, and he's like, if anyone would like to use the bathroom, it's right over there at pole 6. So then upon being questioned again by Yasuo of his legitimacy of actually living in this ski lift, he just sort of gives an overall tour going over every single pole. He's like, the first pole is where I keep my analog records, but I'm thinking of switching to Laserdisc. Every pole is equipped with speakers so I can hear everything if I want to listen to music or something. The second pole is the library and winery, and the third one is my closet. So yeah, he does live up here, Yasuo. You don't need to keep questioning that. And then in the next page, I love Mamazuku's face in this because he looks so proud that he lives up here, and he's just so cocky, and he's like, what do you think? He just looks really cool in this panel. And then Yasuo just, she also notes the orchard, and she says that it looks very unkept, where you keep all of your plants and everything where you grow them. It looks really messy. And also in this panel, we have to mention Josuke's knee. What the fuck is going on there? Okay, I've been staring at this panel a lot, and I don't interpret it any other way than Araki just really fucked up on the proportions here, because Josuke's knee is absolutely enormous. I really don't know how to interpret this any other way than just his leg is way out of proportion with the rest of his body, and I really haven't seen this big of a mistake made by Araki published in an actual chapter before, so I don't know if this is how it was intended to look. I really don't think so, though. So that's just something minor I wanted to mention, but it really has nothing to do with the chapter. But getting on to it, the Plant Appraiser, Mamazuku Rai, actually explains why he has weeds all over the place, and it's because he has sort of a false layer of fruit protecting his real layer, which is at a higher elevation. So lower in the orchard is strawberries growing that have weeds all over it, but that's where the disease and the bugs attack. And the bugs don't really see any need to leave that area because the Plant Appraiser grows fruit for them there, and he doesn't use those fruit, obviously, obviously they're just a decoy, where up on a higher elevation where the bugs wouldn't go is where he has his real fruit. So I believe that is a real farming technique. I did a little bit of research on it before doing this review, and I did see like on farmersorg.net or something, people actually talking about this method. So possibly Araki has been doing some light reading, or maybe playing some Farm Simulator 17. And he also explains that he uses this method because it's all natural, and because of this he doesn't need to spray his plants with any chemicals or anything to keep the bugs away. And apparently this method works really damn good, because he sells a pack of berries for over 10,000 yen, which is yeah, pretty expensive. And Yasuo has this inner thought that says maybe he's kind of a dickhead. But Yasuo, if you think he's a dickhead now, wait what happens to you later in the chapter. But I assume he was telling this all of her in a very aggressive manner, like, oh, you idiot, why are you even questioning this? Okay, it looks unkept because that is a foil right there. That is where the bad strawberries are to attack when the good ones are up here. So I assume he was doing it in a very cocky way. But then finally, after we've been informed about his farming technique and also everything about his home, he finally explains to us more about the enemy. Even in the last chapter, he talked about the dark enemy that slipped into society, and we learn even more about them in this chapter, pretty much who they are, just not exact identities. He goes into his theory by first saying that humans started engaging in agriculture approximately 10,000 years ago. At first, they grew wheat and green peas. From there, human civilization has been constantly developing. He continues on saying, right now, developments in science and technology, terrain and natural environments, art, thinking, and economics seem to have thoroughly surpassed all limitations. Then Yasuo and Josuke sort of give him this blank look, like, what are you going on about? And he says, understand, right now, I'm talking about the enemy. So in the last couple of chapters, JoJolion has really been building on the idea of the enemy being a dark secret society of higher up members of society that want control over the Rokakaka. And that really looks like the way JoJolion is going, sort of us, the main characters, really right now, Yasuo, Josuke, and the Plant Appraiser, going up against this dark secret society that want to get their hands on the information and objects that we know, being the new Rokakaka and the grafted branch. Not so much the actual physical new Rokakaka itself, but what they want to turn it into and what they want to achieve using it, which Mamazuku clearly states right here what they want to do to it. He says, despite that, there is a region which ever since the dawn of human civilization has remained unsolved. He explains that no matter how strong a king is, no matter how great an empire is, there is a region that has never been able to be conquered, and that is the region of not dying. So the region he's talking about is not an actual geographical place, but rather it is a metaphor for immortality, as no matter how great a civilization, no matter how strong a king is, they cannot conquer this land, the land of not dying. So if you really want to get into the geographics of it and think about a place that could be that these emperors and armies couldn't conquer, you could think of the island of New Guinea, where the Rokakakas first appeared, and the natives would every once in a while harvest these Rokakakas and use them. Say if a woman was infertile, they would use it and then they would be able to have a baby after eating the Rokakaka, although then their tits would turn to sand, it said, something like that if I'm remembering correctly. So if you eat it, your boobs turn to sand, but you are able to have a baby now. But I do specifically remember the old people eating the Rokakaka and then growing a new set of rock teeth that they can use. So obviously that's just simple Rokakaka use of equivalent exchange. But although when Mamazuku describes the region of not dying, I really don't think he's talking about that specific place. It's just a metaphor for immortality. So now it's made clear that Mamazuku Rai knows what Josuke is. He knows that he is two people fused together by using the new grafted Rokakaka, and I don't know how the hell he got this information. There's really only one way. It had to have been Norisuke that told him about this, but if you really think about it, Norisuke doesn't know that much. He had no idea of the Rokakaka's existence up until the I am a rock user, and he's still not that very familiar with it. All he really knows about the Rokakaka is some of the rock human and Jobin's connections with them, and also the creation of Josuke. But although the Plant Appraiser seems to have full knowledge of the scientific workings and how the Rokakaka actually functions, the new one that is, so he's sort of just making up information here that logically doesn't make sense how he knows it, but for some reason, the Plant Appraiser knows all of this, so whatever. We'll just assume that Norisuke told this to him. Araki has this tendency of just flat out telling us things through characters' own personal theories, which obviously when a character says, I have this theory, and then they go on in this big long exposition, it's probably fact. And the Plant Appraiser says that the mechanism is astoundingly simple, the equivalent exchange of cells, and he explains, unlike, what we've been studying, like the new creation of cells or the cloning of cells, it's just simple replacement, just swapping putting him out. And he also states, going off his theory, that by my calculations, the cellular replacement of an entire body could be done in just 2 hours. So this theory is pretty much confirmed as fact, as, like I said, Araki has a tendency of telling us things through people's personal theories. So by Mamazuku's theory, it actually gives us a scientific look of how Josuke came to be, and JoJo science this is. So pretty much Kira and Josufume's cells were replaced, all the bad cells replaced, or however the hell it worked, because Kira's body was found. There was just some parts of it missing. So I assume all of the bad cells from Josufume mixed with all the good cells from Kira, and all of the good cells came into one thing, and that was Josuke. This is JoJo science, guys. But what we know is that the new Rokakaka is a process of equivalent exchange of cells. So this is the part where we find out that Mamazuku knows pretty much everything about Josuke, and we're just assuming that this was told to him by Norisuke. He says, Josuke, all of these kings, all of these emperors, all of these very high members of society, what would they think about that region of not dying if they witnessed you, if they saw what you are? So obviously Josuke is made up of Kira and Josufume. Josufume wasn't exactly dying, he was perfectly well and alive, and he could have continued to live on, but Kira was dead. But although through this new Rokakaka, both of them became one, and in theory sort of creating a new life for Kira Yoshikage, although very differently. So right now, Mamazuku is getting at that the new Rokakaka could be used as a tool for immortality, but as we know, it really isn't like that at all, and a lot of those minor details are going to come up later when we actually find out what these people want to do and how it might not exactly work out the way they want it to. So he says that these people, they don't just want one or two of these new Rokakakas to be able to use. Most likely, they are people that want it at a scientific level to turn the Rokakaka into technology. He says that the IT industry alone makes over $5 trillion a year. And he says, what kind of a world would it be with an immortality industry? So right now, we know who our current enemy and possibly the main villain group is in JoJolion. Although we don't know the specific identities of the people that make up this group, we know who they are. They're high-level members of society that are seeking a way of immortality and turning it in, creating some sort of technology that will make you live forever. So Mamazuku's been throwing out the term they a lot. They, them, these people. So Josuke and Yasuo are just like they. Who are they? And then Mamazuku gives us more of his theory, which is pretty much confirmed as who it actually is. He says they could be kings, they could be doctors. No matter who they are, the enemy is them and the rock humans. So it's got to be the rock humans connected, but he doesn't explain why it's the rock humans. I assume just rock humans always have a connection to Rokakakas. So whoever these people may be, I assume it's just any high member of society who can afford to be on this search for immortality and who would need to live forever. Kings, like he said, kings, emperors, presidents, high members of society, doctors, people with, great minds that do great things. Those people and rock humans are on the search to turn the new Rokakaka into technology. That is the villain's motive, and that is what they're trying to do. And when Josuke hears Mamazuku hear the term doctor, a very minor but still significant detail pops up on the panel, and it's a small image of Kira Yoshikage and his mother, Hali-san. And some theory crafting about Hali-san will come up a bit later in the chapters. So although we do know that Kira Yoshikage was studying the rock disease and he was looking for a cure for it, and he found it through the Rokakaka, he wasn't exactly looking for immortality or anything like that. I think that's just a minor detail of doctors. Oh, Josuke, I know some doctors. And then boom, Kira and Hali pop up, because those are the only doctors he knows, I think. So then Mamazuku just more flat out explains this enemy's motives. He says what the enemy wants is the new Rokakaka fruit and scientific data on it. And I love Araki's. In Steel Ball Run, Araki used to do this a lot. Like every panel when someone was mentioned, there would be like a little face inside the panel of the person. Like it would sort of take away from intense situations where like a big intense emotional moment would happen, and then you would just see like a little doodle of gyro or something in a speech bubble. But I love Araki's little things he does here. It's a Rokakaka and then an arrow into data. Turn Rokakaka into data. He does some funny shit sometimes, even if it's not intentional. And then as we all know, Mamazuku is the key to all of this. He is the key to find that grafted branch, and he states, although the only one that's able to harvest the branch from the Higashikata estate is me, a farmer. So this is a huge bombshell, okay? Main antagonist, main group of villains is revealed, their motive, everything. And it's just intense. Josuke sweating at the face, but then out of nowhere, in one panel's time, Josuke just looks over his shoulder and he says, by the way, pull number 4, what's that at the bottom there? And Plant Appraiser just goes off and says, oh, that house is my treadmill, I run on it. And it's like, What the fuck just happened? Why did you guys just get completely distracted? Later in the chapter, we'll see that this chapter did have a lot of filler space in it, sort of to leave the chapter on a cliffhanger, but this was just so sudden. Josuke's sweating because he just got this huge bombshell of information, and Yasuo just being looking a little confused, and then out of nowhere, like, what's that? Oh, that's my treadmill. It's like, what happened? Where did all of the tension go at all? Josuke has no questions about this. He just wants to know where the gym is. That little bit right there just really ruined the flow of that entire monologue that Mamazuku was going on about the new enemy and everything. It really took me out of it, because after that one panel of Josuke asking what the gym is and Mamazuku explaining to him that pole number 4 is a gym, we completely switched to some police showing up around where in the parking lot where the bus stop was, and they say, what happened to this parking lot? And then these guys are just sort of fodder to show us the enemy's ability, and before we know it, we see one of the police officers saying, call for backup, and then he's laying on the floor, completely melted, completely destroyed by one of the Stan's abilities, which we'll get onto a little bit later. And we see his hand, just dark bubbles everywhere, just sort of like blotches of black, but I assume those are holes in his body, just holes in his skin. And yeah, very, very deadly stand that acts very quickly. And Mamazuku is sort of spectating this. He has binoculars and he's looking down, and he's saying, down at the parking lot, but where are the officers? He sees the cop car, but he doesn't see the police officers, because most likely they are both completely just piles of mush right now because of the stand. That just melts them, really. And then Yasuo finally voices some concern of their well-being, as pretty much this incredibly deadly stand that we know now was chasing after them, but they just decided to stop and make Roman off, and maybe even, go for a run on the treadmill, or maybe listen to some music, or go to the library. During all of this, Yasuo finally sort of acknowledges that there is an enemy stand chasing after them that is extremely deadly. And she says, those trees, they're getting closer. They're almost at the lodge now. And then also Josuke voices his concerns too, saying, are we just going to stay up here until the enemy arrives? What are we going to do? And then Plant Appraiser just is like, all right. For some reason, he seems like he has no concern at all, even though he is shouting out these probabilities, like, when we step off this bus, our chances of survival are 7%. Once we get up into the air, our chances of survival go up to 67%. But he seems very calm about all of this and isn't acknowledging this enemy at all. He just wants to make Romanov and make small talk and talk to and I guess it is important to talk to Josuke about his theory of who the enemy is, but then he explains that we're going to be going to pole 8, so that is higher up, so we are going to make some progress and avoid this enemy. And then before shit goes completely out the window and everything turns into chaos, we get one speech bubble from Mamazuku, which is very important, and he says, on the 8th pole, there we can have, I have a way we can harvest the fruit from the Rokakaka branch. So I don't know if he's going to be able to do it from this location and do it remotely, maybe something automatic that will be able to go harvest the fruit, or he has some sort of farming tool or some sort of anything that he's going to have to take to the Higashikata estate and be able to use this tool to harvest the fruit. So what we know is that on pole 8 of the ski lift is the key to finding or being able to grow the new Rokakaka from the branch. But then out of nowhere, in very quick time, Yasuo stated that the tree we're at the lodges, which is still in the concrete parking lot, out of nowhere, the tree it completely accelerates towards them. This thing is actually moving extremely fast. Like we saw, he was speeding in a bus, probably going 60 to 100 miles per hour, and those trees were keeping pace. So once these trees are in grass, they're really nothing to fuck with, and they came after the ski lift extremely fast, and before you know it, it's right up behind them, and boom, the stand attack happens. It knocks Yasuo off the ski lift. Josuke grabs her. Mamazuku's like, oh fuck, this shit's going down right now, it got real. For some reason, if he has all these probabilities of chances of survival, shouldn't he have some sort of sixth sense or have any sort of intuition that this was going to happen? It's just, his character seems a bit inconsistent with his statistics. And very quickly, shit is getting intense. Yasuo is hanging on to Josuke's arm, about to fall off, but then we see more of the actual stand, or should I say stands, as I think that this is 2 stand users working together, or at least 2 stands working in tandem to take out these enemies. And I don't really know what the enemy's goal is here. I feel like they would want Josuke because he is the new creation and the first use they've seen of the new Rokakaka, and they definitely need Mamazuku to be able to grow and find the grafted branch. So it seems like they're attacking them very violently and extremely deadly, so I don't know what these enemies, I assume these enemies are part of this secret society, the high members that are, looking for them in order to find and get their hands on that new Rokakaka, or their subordinates below this, below the high members of society. But either way, they are being way too aggressive with them right now if they need their safety, or it could just be that these are automatic stands and they're not being controlled. And what we see is the first look at least one of the stands, and it is a colony type stand. A lot of the alternate universe, especially JoJolion colony type stands, I believe the only other one we see before is Lei Fei, the French naming stand, excuse my pronunciation. Earlier in JoJolion, around the Legend of Johnny Joestar arc, those things were also a colony stand, but they really didn't have a face. And these things are very similar, as there is a bunch of them, but they're just sort of objects. They're just like blocks, I guess, with little spikes on them. I assume the spikes are how they climb things. They sort of dig their spikes in while they rotate. So I don't know if the trees and these blocks are the same stand. It seems like a lot of abilities for one stand. But the one thing that does make me have a little bit of belief that these are one stand is that the colony type stand is coming out of the tree bark, or coming out of the branches. It's just appearing out of the trees. So as we see later, once the stand actually affects Mamazuku, first it like, even another ability it has, it just shoots out rocks from the ground. So apparently the stand's ability now is to move at a high speed and control trees. It's able to rotate the trees. Obviously that's how it moves at high speed, by rotating them. It's allowed to shoot rocks out of the ground. It's able to send out these flesh melting spikes as well. It's a lot going on for it to be just one stand. And Josuke states something that may have some significance, but he's been really dumb in the last couple chapters. Like, his IQ went down at least 15 to 18 points. He says, the tree isn't the enemy. The trees are just a ladder that send the enemy, which possibly because we did see there were a lot of trees moving that were rotating. So my theory is that one person stand is able to move an object, or maybe just move trees. So that person's stand is able to move objects at high speed. The other person's stand is the colony type stand that has those little block things that, as we see in the next panel, once they actually make contact with someone, while Josuke is way busy protecting Yasuo, he caught her. He even used soft and wet to block the projectiles and the other colony type stand to reach her. Mamazuko, on the other hand, has no protection. His stand isn't based off combat. He's not able to use it for combat, and he's being attacked right now when it was clearly stated that Mamazuku is first priority and he wants Josuke to protect him, but he's not doing a very good job of it right now. And while Mamazuku is just sort of in shock, looking at his hand being deteriorated, you hear Josuke yelling, "Mamazuku-san, move the chairlift, move it now!" And like, I feel like he has this like pent up anger, like, why the fuck am I being damaged right now while that bitch over there is being saved? Like, I feel like he has a lot of resentment for Yasuo, and we'll definitely see that later in this chapter. Because right now, he definitely is the most important character. Without him, there is nothing else. They won't be able to find that grafted branch, and they probably won't be able to find it by wintertime, so it'll be dead, and this entire plan, and this entire plot point, and everything will just end right there. It ends with Mamazuku. And then we see a more detailed look of the stand functioning. So a black hole is on Mamazuku's hand, and that's obviously just an opening in his body. And then you see the little colony type stands going inside it, and he says, seriously, our chance of survival has decreased to 7%. And okay, so Mamazuku's infected right now. His hand is covered in black holes. The colony type stand's going into it. I got a little bit ahead of myself. I mentioned this before, but then once the colony type stand attacks Yasuo, then Josuke uses his soap bubbles to save her. But he really hasn't been worrying about the plant appraiser at all. So then finally, after a few action panels of just a lot of movement happening, Mamazuku staring at his hand while trying to reach for the ski resort lift, and he finally clicks the button and they finally get over there, and Mamazuku hops on, and he is not happy about what just happened. He is pissed. He says, Josuke-kun, look at my left hand. Look at it. And just like the look on his face is so sad and disappointed in Josuke, he says, as per the promise we made on the bus, you were going to make protecting me your number one priority, right? That's what we agreed. And then just they're looking over their safe, Yasuo, sort of in Josuke's arms, and then they're safe, and then you see Mamazuku's hand. He says, yeah, you covered Yasuo first. I can understand being in the heat of the moment, but as a result, one of the tree branches that were coming after me just touched my hand. So he's like, look at my hand. I've been affected. You told me I was your number one priority, but you saved her instead. And now look what happened. Like, he's not like yelling at him or anything. He's just like showing him what Josuke did pretty much. Although Josuke or Yasuo, Plant Appraiser or Yasuo, really it was in the heat of the moment. Josuke was closer to Yasuo, and I don't even know if Josuke does have quite a bit of range with his soap bubbles, so he probably could have put the colony type stand in the soap bubbles to defend Mamazuku, but like Mamazuko said, it was in the heat of the moment, and even if I was Josuke, I feel like in that situation I really would be more focused on Yasuo because she was right in front of him, and Mamazuku was way off on the other side. And when Mamazuku is staring at his wounds, he's sort of analyzing the stand's ability, saying that it's climbing up inside my body, and they're polluting my body and melting it, causing these holes to grow bigger and bigger. So it really is a fast-working infection type stand that just sort of deteriorates her body at an extremely fast pace in a very, very gory way. And one thing I have to mention here while Mamazuku is staring at his wounds is some theory crafting that the community has been doing, and it's a callback all the way to Holly-san in the hospital, where we see her head, her brain obviously, and it being affected by the supposed rock disease, although it doesn't make any sense for her to have the rock disease, so there might be something suspect there. But what we see are these holes in her brain, and they do look very similar to the holes on Mamazuku's hand. So what people have been theorizing is that, as Mamazuku says, these people, they could be doctors, high members of society, scientists. When the doctors were telling Josuke about Holly-san's brain injury, people really highlighted the term that illness cannot be cured with current medicine. Like, no, we don't know what's wrong with Holly, but all we know is that with the current medicine, it can't be healed. And what people are sort of getting at is that these doctors, all the way back in those chapters, these doctors are going to come back into the story, and they were sort of manipulating or influencing Josuke to go find a Rokakaka for them. Maybe they didn't want to do the dirty work and get their hands dirty, and they found someone that Josuke cares about, Holly-san. They're like, okay, yeah, I mean, we don't know what's wrong with her, but with current medicine, what we have with this technology, we can't do it. So of course that did entice Josuke, and that made Josuke's goal to find a Rokakaka. So if these people, which they probably weren't, were trying to influence or manipulate Josuke, it worked. And once Josuke finds the grafted branch in the Rokakaka, they could easily just come in and snatch it from him. But based on how JoJolion is playing out right now, and them being actually attacked, I don't think these people are going to come back up into the story. But like, with the most obscure theory I could think of is that guy right there, the doctor with sort of the Rohan hair and the glasses, is the stand user of the colony type stand, and he used it on Holly's brain to sort of give her the illusion of being sick, and then giving Josuke motive to go to find the Rokakaka. But obviously that's completely absurd, because it's been a plot point where Holly has been suffering from the rock disease for a long time, and the rock disease is known to heavily affect the brain and memories and sort of deteriorate the brain. So I think this theory is a bit too outlandish, and these guys really aren't going to come back up into the story at all. But it is sort of suspect of the wounds in her brain and them being doctors, and doctors being mentioned again. So I don't know, I just think that's a bit too out there right now. So then getting back into the actual chapter, we see Mamazuku finally activate Doggy Style, his stand, and it got a little bit of a redesign if we notice. If you go back to the first time it was fully shown, it had legs, and we saw the bottom part of its pelvis, so we saw the bottom part of its pelvis and then legs. But now in this panel, we see it sort of has like a fun type leg deal going on, where it's like three almost like tubes coming out of it that's sort of attached to Mamazuku's body, more so like in a Mandem way, Ringo Road stand, more so than the stand actually having legs. So yeah, slight redesign on Doggy Style. Arms are still the same. Its ears look like they're a little bit bigger, and also their eyes. His eyes, before they were just like little, like, they look like little leaves. Now they're much longer, and they have the more traditional macaroni stand type eyes. And yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Grateful Dead. But now that we know the stand's Doggy Style, the stand's face is clearly to represent a dog's. It has dog ears, does an elongated dog face. So I think that's kind of cool. Dog type stand. So then Mamazuku actually uses Doggy Style, but in a very obscure way. So he needed to dispose of his left hand, as the virus is assumed to infect your entire body. If it gets hit by you once, it's going to spread throughout your entire body. So he used Doggy Style to turn his hand again into the gauze type flesh bandage, or the wound bandages, and then he just sliced it off right there. So what Doggy Style has been used for so far is to grab a strawberry off the ground, and also to amputate a limb much easier than just, cutting off your entire hand. He just turned his entire hand into strain and then cut it. So I don't know what Doggy Style is actually what more is Doggy Style actually gonna do? I mean, right now it really just seems like a shitty stone free, and its ability has to play into something. The ability, I said it was underpowered, and it really seems like it's just to turn his flesh into gauze, but there has to be something greater here. Although alternate universe stands are sort of notorious for being very underpowered and very obscure, this is just, I don't know. I really don't know what to make of this, and I really think it can be used in a greater way, maybe in a way that plays into his profession. So Doggy Style right now, I just don't know about it. I mean, we know at face value, it's just able to turn his body into gauze, but I don't know what he is able to do with that simple ability. But from what we know right now, he can grab strawberries and he can amputate limbs very easily. Like, we don't even know if he's able to use this on other people or if it's just him. So Doggy Style, although at face value we sort of know what it does, it's still very suspect in its ability. And unfortunately, it is not a healing type stand, as he states. I had no choice but to abandon my left hand, and it cannot be brought back to normal, which sucks because the Plant Appraiser now has no left hand, which also makes me really worried that he might die soon, because, I mean, is he just going to be a main character for the rest of the story just without his left hand? It's just, that sucks, man. I really hated that he lost his left hand. Like, but I guess this was to show just how deadly the stance ability is and how we really shouldn't fuck around about it. How he just got touched once by it and his left hand was completely ruined and he now does not have a left hand. I mean, he has his thumb, but no fingers. And now Mamazuku is seriously pissed. Like, he doesn't exactly show it. He's not furious, obviously, like steam coming out of his ears or anything, but just in his eyes. You can see the resentment he holds for Josuke and Yasuo and how mad. I'd be pissed too if I lost my left hand. So from right now, he showed up, and first of all, the enemy attacked his house because of Josuke. He came to Josuke to say, okay, you got me in this whole situation. You need to protect me now. You're coming with me because I do not have a combat-based stand, and I hear from Norisuke that you do, so you should be able to protect me. Boom, the first situation they get in, Josuke does not protect him and lets him get his left hand destroyed, and now Mamazuku is without a left hand when he exactly told Josuke that I am the #1 priority for what you need to find this grafted branch. You need to protect me. Josuke didn't protect him, so yeah, he's a little pissed off right now. And then Mamazuku does one of the most savage things possible as he's on the ski lift with Josuke and Yasuo, and he says, you seriously want that Rokakaka fruit, huh? Boom! Elbows Yasuo completely off of the ski lift, and she falls onto the ground. They were only on, I believe, the fourth or fifth ski pole, so it wouldn't be that high as the ski pole as it goes up and increases in height, I believe. So still, I think it's like a 10, 13 foot fall, which is enough to kill a human. So, obviously, I'm just going to come out and say it right now. Yasuo is not dead, but she did fall off to the ground because the Plant Appraiser pushed her. So, I don't know what you guys want to think about Mamazuku now. Was that just? Should he have done that? Probably not. Might have been a little bit extreme. And then he also states that pushing Yasuo onto the ground, he says, where is the enemy? The enemy isn't moving the tree, then maybe it's moving underground. Let's test out my theory. So now he's just really using Yasuo as bait for the enemy. So does he really care if Yasuo lives or dies? Obviously not really right now. So is he a good guy but kind of a bad guy? Yeah, kinda. So after this, I assume a lot of people are going to absolutely hate Mamazuku now for what he did. I myself, I really, it was kind of extreme to push Yasuo off and sort of use her as bait, but you really have to think of it from his situation, and then it seems a bit more reasonable. Not really reasonable, though. I think this decision was mostly made out of anger and resentment. And then the chapter ends on a cliffhanger of Yasuo lying on the ground, passed out, and Josuke saying, "What? Yasuo-chan?" And then in the, every chapter always has a little bit of text at the end, sort of alluding to what's going to happen next, and it says, "A sacrifice?" And that's the end of the chapter. Alright, guys, some people really think Yasuo is going to die here. I can almost assure you that Yasuo is going to be safe. The chapter clearly wanted to end on this cliffhanger, because if we go back earlier, like when Josuke was like, hey, what's that pole number 4 over there? Oh, that's the treadmill. And when he explained the bathroom and everything, there was sort of a lot of filler space in this chapter that made it conveniently end on Yasuo on the ground unconscious. So this also hasn't been the first time either that Yasuo's death has sort of been cliffhanged in a chapter before. If you remember back with Jobin's attack, everyone was like, oh my god, is Yasuo dead? Her head was boiling. I knew she wasn't dead then, and I don't think she's dead now. Think about it. You have two characters here with very fitting stand abilities to bring her back up to a higher elevation. Josuke has been seen many times using bubbles to be able to bring people up higher. He could easily do that with her. And also Mamazuku could be like, okay, fine, Josuke, that was just a warning, and then use a Doggy Style to just grab Yasuo and bring her back up. Or even maybe the stand ability and the trees are able to go underground and the tree brings her up high. That's just a random theory I had, because if you think about it, the trees really did come out of nowhere, where it was like, oh, the trees are way over by the lodge, and then in like the next panel they were right there. So maybe the trees went underground, vroom, went over to him, boom, came back up out of the ground, and that's how they got over there so quick. So who knows, but I'm saying in the next chapter, worst comes to worst, maybe Yasuo breaks a bone, maybe she loses a limb or two, as we saw how easy it is. Yeah, that's the worst thing that could happen to Yasuo. As we saw, Mamazuku very easily lost a limb, so Yasuo on the ground right now, maybe one gets in her foot, maybe, Rai uses Doggy Style on her foot, cuts it off, boom, Yasuo doesn't have a foot. So the worst thing that could possibly happen here is, maybe a broken bone or something, or at the very worst, she has to lose a limb, which probably won't happen either way, because I know Yasuo is a very beloved character from all of the fans in all regions, Japan and the West, so I don't think Yasuo is going anywhere. She's going to be safe, although this is very nerve-wracking to end a chapter on this, and we have to wait an entire month knowing that Yasuo is just on the ground with this very deadly, high-speed moving stand coming after her, so, but I can assure you guys that Yasuo is going to be just fine in the next chapter. For some reason, Araki likes to cliffhang bad things happening to her, but yeah, I'm not going to believe him until he does something serious. When's the last time we had a character death in JoJolion? Really, honestly, was it the Dubiwa fight? Dolomiti didn't die. No, a bunch of random characters in Blue Hawaii. Damo, was it? I don't know. There's not a lot of deaths in JoJolion, at least not main character, protagonist deaths. So, anyways, guys, that is chapter 66. A lot of things revealed with the main villain, which is very nice. Who they are, what they want, the technology, will they want to use the new Rokakaka as science to sort of find immortality, and that was the biggest piece of information we've had in months, many months, that this, the goal of the main villain is immortality, which isn't, the most revolutionary thing, but it's still interesting nonetheless. I think it's going to be a very funny Valentine-esque situation, how you might think about it like, how is this a bad guy? Who is the villain here? They want to study a fruit in order to make people immortal. What could be bad about that, unless they charge it at a ridiculous price? Whatever terms, if they even did this and they created something that could make people immortal, it would probably be very expensive and only for the higher ups in society. So I think it's going to be a funny Valentine situation where their overall goal isn't necessarily evil. Funny Valentine's endgame wasn't evil. It's just the means the methods he used to get there were evil. Killing people, using people, doing bad things, doing whatever means necessary to get to his goal. So that's sort of what made Funny Valentine a bad person. So I could see these guys being the same way. Their overall goal of research and creating some sort of mechanism or medicine for immortality, that isn't necessarily an evil goal, but the methods that they will use to achieve it will be evil. So that's sort of where I see this going. I've been talking way too long here, so I think I'm going to cut it there. That was JoJolion chapter 66 review. Like the video if I fought your boredom, or if you just enjoyed, and of course subscribe for more videos. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video as well as the Mamazuku Rai cosplay. Of course, I showed pictures in the beginning. Also, you can follow my Instagram and my Twitter for more cosplay stuff. But anyways, thank you guys for watching.
September, love was changing their minds, pretend